All right, fellow Lions, got a good one here for you. We are talking about running backs for 2024. Are they done? Is it the end of the line for fantasy football for these big name running backs? We're talking some Ekeler, we're talking some Pollard, and even some Derrick Henry. Is it the end of the line? Just going to have an open discussion here with you guys as we start ramping up the 2024 fantasy football content. Guys, it's here now. 2024 is here. Some people are thinking, fantasy's over. It's not over here because we have the line mentality. We're always thinking ahead. We're projecting forward. Why not have fantasy football all year round? If you guys love fantasy football, if it's your passion, make sure you guys are subscribed right now. Click the thumbs up. Drop a comment below. Let me know. Let's make it interactive. Are these guys done? Love to get your feedback in this open discussion here. I'm going to keep feeding you guys daily content. Also going to be doing news on here too. So turn on that bell, subscribe. We go year round. Again, we're going to be covering news here as well for you, so you guys are completely covered in all aspects of fantasy football and the NFL. Okay, guys? So I'm excited to dive into this and talk about these running backs. And again, if you want direct access to me as we're going to start ramping up and give you guys inside information, first, join the Patreon group, patreon.com/FFCounselor. Join the fantasy front lines for direct access and inside information before you hear it anywhere else. I've linked it below, patreon.com/FFCounselor. All right, are they done? We've had bad years out of some guys here. Tony Pollard. And I warned you, there's a bunch of guys I knew would have a bad year. Tony Pollard being one, because he was like a fourth, fifth round pick 4 years ago. That saying holds true, guys. Years to wow me, guys, and I'm not wowed. That's a real saying. That I didn't just say that because it sounds cool. You know, years to wow us, we're not wowed. Pollard was that guy. He had a good year last year, but he was never a true workhorse running back. And that's what I told everybody. Yet he was being drafted in the first round. Finished 14th in PPR, 935 yards on the ground, only 4 touchdowns. Just couldn't get it done touchdown-wise. So when I look at these guys, when I look at like Tony Pollard next year, he was not even a guy I was interested in this year. Now you're going to get him for a value next year because the Kashyps are going to be off of him, but we're going to have to see a whole new situation. I don't think he's the solution there with the Cowboys. I don't think he's the long-term solution. They need a true workhorse running back, and Pollard is just not it. So we're going to talk about him. Josh Jacobs, another guy we got to talk about here real quick. This is a guy who only averaged 3.5 yards per carry on the year. Now we're only talking about 17 weeks in, right? We're excluding the week 18 here for all these guys, but as of 17 weeks, that pretty much sums up the entire season for fantasy. 3.5 yards per carry for Jacobs, finishing 23rd. Another guy coming off this pinnacle year in 2022, heading into 2023, I was like, dude, this guy was always like a 4th, 5th round pick with Dave Montgomery, a guy that was always kind of a crappy, mediocre, just above par running back. Coming off this pinnacle year last year, everyone was on him. I'm like, dude, I'm not sold on Jacobs. And if you remember that whole drama where I almost fought Jacobs, I said he sucked. He came into my DM, said he wanted to fight. I said, hey, man, let's set up a boxing match. Just do it. He goes, pull up, cuz, you know where I'm at, which I'm not his cousin. I didn't know where he was at. Long story short, I DM'd him like, hey, man, set it up. And then he blocks me. So he actually said, set it up. I'm like, let's do it. Then he blocks me. This was years ago, but I don't like him. I don't like his attitude. I met him at the NFL draft when he came in as a rookie, but that's not here nor there. I'm talking about his fantasy impact. I just want to give you guys some context on what I feel about this guy. He's not that good. And 3.5 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns on the ground, finishing 23rd this year, 17 weeks in here. Unacceptable, right? Is it the end of the line for him? Is it the end of the line for Austin Ekeler? Listen, there shouldn't have even been in the front of the line for Ekeler. This guy was a backup to Melvin Gordon for years. Had a couple good years, right? 3.7 yards per carry this past year, finishing 25th amongst running backs, in PPR. This is a guy that everybody told you to draft with their second pick. I said, avoid him. Now you can say, well, Joe, you know what? You were wrong about him the year before and the year before. He got lucky those years, right? It's opportunity. Sometimes lightning strikes twice, or sometimes you may hit gold, or sometimes people win the lottery. That's what happened with Ekeler. He was in that perfect storm, perfect situation. The offensive coordinator last year loved him. He had the opportunity. And I told you, it was the perfect storm coming off a pinnacle year. A decline was imminent, and we avoided him. If you got 16 rounds, if you were in my Patreon group, you knew that Ekeler would be the fool's gold of the year, and he busted. Is the end, and we're going to answer this. Is it going to be the end of the line of him? And let me know in the comments below. I'm going to get to it. Derrick Henry, another guy, finished 10th this year. Alvin Kamara, all these guys that have been veterans, older guys for years. Christian McCaffrey coming off a pinnacle year. Are they done? Is it the end of the line? Well, make sure you guys subscribe and thumbs up here, and make sure you guys are glued in, because I'm going to be diving more into this as we get closer to the season. But the way that it sits now, particularly these guys that I mentioned here, is you got to start looking forward. Always project forward, right? I'll give you an example here. Breece Hall had 4.4 yards per carry. Gibbs, 5.4. Young, hungry, dynamic, explosive. That's what I look at when I look at a running back. I don't look for a guy that was a backup for 2 years to Melvin Gordon coming off a pinnacle year in Austin Ekeler. That's what the mainstream told you. They copied and pasted and said, hey, man, you got to draft Austin Ekeler with the second pick. I'm like, nope, don't do it. You got to see this stuff. Now, I was wrong on CMC. I thought he was going to decline this year. I believe this year was his last hurrah. He had it. Congratulations. He got hurt, and he's not playing week 18 with a calf strain, which is going to linger. Not necessarily that's going to linger, but it's just showing red flags for next year. And I did a whole video on this. Go back a few. Check it right now. CMC, 5 reasons why not to draft him. So, again, I'm looking at this and I'm just saying to myself, Ekeler, end of the line, 100%. And now the Chiefs are going to be like, oh, we're not going to draft him. We're going to fade Austin Ekeler now. Well, why didn't you see that last year? Tony Pollard is at the end of the line. It was never the starting of the line. He was never that good. Yet the mainstream made you believe this guy was a first-round pick last year, coming off a decent year last year, the year before, right? Josh Jacobs, another guy that was average all these years, new offense, dude, coming off a pinnacle year. You should have seen that as well. Is it the end of the line? Guy like Nick Chubb coming off injuries, the end of the line. Again, I'm going to lay this all out in 16 rounds when that comes out. That comes out in around April, right? You could pre-order. I'm going to have pre-orders, you guys. It's all coming soon. I'm going to lay this all out for you. But when it comes to those 3 guys in particular, Pollard, Jacobs, Ekeler, I'm never drafting him again. That's straight, to be honest. Henry, I think he's on his last legs too. I mean, he's 29, 30 years old, whatever he is, finished 10th amongst running backs, but he was only averaging 3.9 yards per carry, 261 attempts, and barely scraped 1,000 yards on the ground. He looked lackluster to say the least, and his touchdowns are what saved him this year and made him a viable running back option. He had a couple down weeks as well. Alvin Kamara as well, having a pinnacle year, right? Again, a guy who was good like 5 years ago with Mark Ingram, him had that committee. They're the ones that kind of started this whole running back by committee. Him having a great year. Is that the end of the line? We're going to deep dive, but I will tell you right now, when you're watching this video, never ever draft Austin Ekeler. I was telling you never draft Ekeler anyway, but it is 100% end of the line for him. The Chargers just can't afford to keep him, especially with what they paid Herbert. Not going to happen. He's not coming back next year. That's why they didn't want to pay him the mega contract. They couldn't afford him. They knew he was on a decline anyway, right? Josh Jacobs, never liked the guy. I don't think he's that good. And Tony Pollard, man, like I said, these guys are all going to be great value this year because the Chiefs are going to be off them. They're going to be riding all the guys that we talked about, the 16-round people, the Jahmyr Gibbs, the Breece Halls of the world. Those are the guys that are now emerging. Even guys we didn't see, like Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams is going to be a guy that's going to be up. Rashad White, who, again, I've talked about before. I think he's fool's gold. I don't think he's that good of a running back. I think he's another guy that, was in that situation, just was productive, was safe. And I'm not paying a first-round pick if that's where he's going off. We're going to have to see where he falls. I'm sure he's going to be like a second-round pick or something like that. So are they done? They should have never started. These guys got lucky. Jacobs, not so. He was a higher draft capital when he came in the league, a little more higher caliber of a player. But a guy like Pollard should have been coming off in the first round last year. Austin Ekeler shouldn't have been coming off in the first round last year. There's other guys that are completely done. Dalvin Cook just got released by the Jets. That guy had no business being on the Jets. And I talked about this. I'm like, when that news broke, people were telling you, draft Dalvin Cook round 5. I'm like, no, do not draft Dalvin Cook at all, period. Zilch, nada, don't do it. In fact, I did a video saying, Dalvin Cook sucks. He's trash. Don't draft him. And people are like, oh, it's Dalvin Cook, blah, blah, blah. Dalvin Cook had only finished one season, barely, his entire career. So I was like, dude, do not draft Dalvin Cook. And what did everybody do? They drafted Dalvin Cook 5th round, listened to the mainstream consensus, and they fell apart. Guys, you cannot listen to the copy and paste mainstream consensus rankings. They are a direct mirror of the top finishers from last year, minus 1 or 2 players they kind of blend in and kind of put in the mix there. It's direct copy and paste, and everybody's doing it except for here. So lion mentality here. Make sure you guys are subscribed and hit the thumbs up and turn on that bell because I'm going to be giving you guys, I'm diving in more deep. This year, we're rolling up our sleeves. We're going harder this year. We're diving deeper this year, and we're going to be as the best version of possible we can of ourselves, right? Because we really want to anticipate and know things before they happen, right? We did this year. We saw Sam Laporta. Now everyone's gonna be going for Sam Laporta. We saw Tank Dell. Everyone's gonna be riding Tank Dell. We had a couple misses with those stashes, like Tank Bigsby should have had more volume. Quentin Johnson should have had more volume. Certain things didn't work out, but they were like bench stashes. We had one wrong. The one wrong, my Achilles heel, my really bad heel this year, we had two major wrong ones where Bijan Robinson, who, again, a lot of that wasn't based on talent, it was based on Arthur Smith. It is what it is, but he still finished ahead of Austin Ekeler. So it is what it is. So Bijan was a little bit off, and then Dameon Pierce was a big letdown because he was in a position to succeed, and he absolutely crapped the bed. So you're never going to get it 100%, but what you can do is you can be light years ahead, spot the Laporta, spot the Tank Dells, spot the guys like J.K. Dobbins and say, I'm not drafting J.K. Dobbins, years to Wiles, we're not one. I'm not drafting Austin Ekeler, years to Wiles, we're not one. I'm not drafting Dalvin Cook. I'm not drafting Mike Williams in the 5th round. I'm not drafting Keenan Allen, who had a good year but didn't play the last 3 weeks of the season, right? You got to start seeing this stuff and saying, I can potentially avoid a pitfall here if I just look at the history, if I just look at the data, if I just get 60 rounds, if I just join the Patreon group and listen to the counselor who lives and breathes this stuff and analyzes it and projects it instead of just copying and pasting. So to answer your question, to wrap this up, is Pollard done? Is Jacobs done? Is Austin Ekeler done? Yes. Derrick Henry, I'm never drafting again. Always look, Alvin Kamara, I'm never drafting. Didn't have him this year either. Always look forward. Who's up and coming? Who's young? Who's hungry? Who's averaging more yards per carry? Who's explosive? Look at the depth chart. Look at the situation. Look at the volume, and then you're going to find your winner. But always aim for youth, especially at that running back position. Hopefully this video helped. I'm glad we enjoyed it. We had a talk today here. We're getting into 2024. It doesn't end. Subscribe, thumbs up. We're going to go hard and drop your comment below. Are you done with these guys, or did you never draft them before anyway? Did you listen to me and avoid Ekeler this year anyway? Make it interactive, guys. I appreciate you guys in the comments. Subscribe. We're going hard. Lion up. Let's get it.